of our work is to demonstrate that there are no divisions, and those divisions can blend by learning our heritage. We're going to start with a very good friend of mine, Bill People, who's going to open our program.
I'd just like to go over some of the places that I was working at. First of all, I worked at Offridge Stadium when I was a sophomore at Lafayette High School, which is right across the street. And, you know, when you're a young sophomore and you were making a little bit of money, that was one of the best jobs I ever had. It was nice. So, you know, because of my relationship with the street, you know, this is the one street in Buffalo that I can truly call my own. There's a lot of business people on the street that I'm fortunate enough to be on a first-name basis with.
It is such a beautiful day for us to come out and to see all of you good people who have lived in this area. And although I'm here today, but my heart is heavy because we're still in a situation that happened in Charlotte, which is one of our sister churches, where 9 people was killed. So our hearts are still heavy, and we're kind of in bereavement over that, but yet we'll come out to celebrate with you because we are on Ferry Street. Heavenly Father, it's just once again that we are able to come together and fellowship and friendship. And Father, we know that you've held this area in your hands. You have blessed this area for so many years, and we ask now for your continued blessings, that you would bless not only this area, but all the people that's up under the sound of my voice. We ask you to bless them, give them traveling mercy to wherever destination they are going. And Father, we just ask now that you continue to bless this area.
And I also lived, worked, and played on Ferry Street. The first home I ever purchased was at 613 East Ferry Street, where my wife Michelle and I raised our son until he was about 12 years old. I worked on East Ferry Street as a member of the Buffalo Common Council, and the first major project that I was ever able to achieve as a council member was convincing my colleagues on the council and Mayor Masiello at that time to build a district police station at East Ferry and Fillmore Avenue. And I played on Ferry Street as a young father with all of the kids on Ferry. We used to play hide and seek, we used to race, and to all of the kids that were growing up on Ferry at that time, I'm still faster than all of you. You know, this is another great day in Buffalo, and I'm very pleased to be here with so many members of our community, and historian and restaurateur Mark Goldman and the Friends of the Buffalo Story, who really spearheaded this project today with other partners in the community. You know, we're all working hard to build a city of opportunity, a city where there are no divisions between East Side and West Side, a city where Main Street is not the dividing line, and a city where the prosperity that we are seeing grow in the city of Buffalo can be shared by each and every resident. And that's what this project symbolizes. This project, the Ferry Street Photograph Project, symbolizes the connections that we all share. And the Buffalo stories that will be unveiled show the stories of the East Side and the West Side and the commonalities that we all have with each other. You know, and sometimes building opportunity comes right down to the street level, which is why this project is so important, because this is going to give people the opportunity to reflect, the opportunity for people to think, the opportunity for people from all parts of the city and the region to come together to see that we are one community. So I want to just again thank Mark Goldman and the Friends of the Buffalo Story. They partnered with the city of Buffalo to apply for and receive a $100,000 Our Town grant through the National Endowment of the Arts. The project was spearheaded by the Friends of the Buffalo Story. And any of you that know Mark Goldman, you know that he is a relentless organizer. So initially when Mark came to the city and said, hey, we would like to partner with you on this, and we'd like to do this major ambitious project, we were a little concerned about the time. Well, I shouldn't say we. Some of my staff were concerned about the time that would go into it. And I told them, don't worry about it. I'm going to turn it all over to Mark, and Mark will spend the time. And he sure did. And I just want to credit him with the work that he has done to touch base with so many people on the east side, on the west side, down Ferry on the east side, down Ferry on the west side, and throughout the community, really symbolizing that if we touch each other like that, if we spend the time to reach out to each other like that, there's nothing that we can't accomplish in this great city. We are one city, we are one people, and this public art project is another way to unify us in the city of Buffalo.
Good afternoon. This is incredible. I am amazed with the tremendous turnout and support. Mark Goldman, if you look up the word of perseverance, I believe you'll see his picture there, because he tries, he gets an idea, he goes with it, and when he came to us and said, I want to use your wall to hang these beautiful photos, we were thrilled to participate. We're so pleased to participate with the Friends of the Buffalo Story. The NFTA shares the belief that integrating heritage into the fabric of our public landscape helps renew and revitalize the community. Today, the NFTA is pleased and honored to share in this rich history, whether it's the 1940s Cold Spring Cab Company, started by Buzzy Brown, that was before my time, or the Offerman Stadium. We know that uncovering our past, we can help build our future. NFTA is thrilled to play a small role in promoting this heritage, and we look forward to participating in other Buffalo stories that demonstrate our rich heritage, particularly within transportation. Buffalo's first urban transit was in 1834. There was a horse car line on Niagara Street that then blossomed into the Niagara Street Railroad, and by 1870 that combined with the Buffalo Railroad was carrying over 5 million passengers annually. Today, with the help of the mayor and the city of Buffalo, we are revitalizing Niagara Street, where we hope to revive our past by giving homage to it in the present. I wish to congratulate Mark Goldman, the Friends of the Buffalo Story, on this beautiful tribute to the many men and women in our past and present who've helped shape and build our vibrant city and our community.
This is all you could hope for. I mean, if you're thinking of a unified city, if you're thinking about creating unity where in places that we've always wanted it, this is such a demonstration. And you're the ones who are demonstrating your belief in a unified city, and we appreciate it very, very much. Our project is not limited to what you see on these walls. It's also focused on the corner, on the northeast corner of Main and Ferry, which has a story of its own. And the reason I was drawn to that corner and to that story is because that is where the Cold Spring was. Now, Cold Spring, we know, is a neighborhood. But Cold Spring, many of you know, was also the name of a spring that ran underground and came out right at the intersection of Main and Ferry, right there on Mr. Hines' lot on the northeast corner of Main and Ferry. So we looked for this, could find no illustrations of it, but we found very, very detailed descriptions of what it looked like in about 1810. And we worked very, very closely with an extraordinary designer, Scott Wood. And Scott rendered, and you can see it on the wall, He did a rendering of what the Cold Spring looked like in 1804, 1810. It was right there. What I liked about the Cold Spring, and this is what I meant when I found out about this, I went to the mayor right away and said, wow, this was not only a spring, it was a well. It was like the Rachel's Well in early 19th century Buffalo. I mean, think of the power of that metaphor, the Rachel Well. What if we could somehow mark that, symbolize that? And I had this idea about we're going to do a traffic turnaround and with a sculpture, and he said, no, don't get too carried away here. Let's get first things first. But we would very, and I'm not calling for this at all, but I really want you to take the time to look at that corner. We're working with a very good photographer in our community, Ron Wolford, and our challenge here was to photograph people who are living and working along the Ferry Street corridor today. And we got that, and some of those people are here today, many of them. We have a great contingent from the Bazaar, the West Side Bazaar. We have a great contingent from the east side of Ferry Street. We are strongly represented by one of my favorite projects in Buffalo, the Wash Project. And so it's a broad coalition of support. Look at those photographs, and they're inquiry-based. They ask you questions. They make you think about what the stories were. One of my favorites is the story of Offerman Stadium. And for many, many reasons. But if you go look at that picture of Offerman Stadium, you're going to see a public space in the mid-1950s where blacks and whites are standing together. And you're going to see a poster for a jazz concert that was held there in 1960. And one of our great storytellers in this community, the great writer, is Joe Giambra. And Joey has taken the material that we've gathered from that event at Offerman Stadium and has created a story, a Buffalo story, a Ferry Street corridor story from that event.
In the mid-1960s, I was an actor performing in a play called The Black Man in White America. The piece, directed by Ed Lawrence, was presented in a primitive space, a former Maston Avenue auto repair shop, a garage, that ultimately evolved into the African American Cultural Center. In the audience one evening was Laverne Clay, a fellow actor whom I knew and whom I was happy to see. That friendship, personal and professional, exists today. Our paths have crossed numerous times since. In 2005, the now iconic African Cultural Center chose Laverne to direct a production of Branch Rickey Calls a Meeting, a play about the title character, he, of Brooklyn and Jackie Robinson fame. Laverne chose me to play Mr. Rickey in what became a successful and well-crafted production. During rehearsals and the run of the play, it was no surprise to learn that Laverne, like most African Americans, was well-versed in jazz, our singular contribution to the arts. As such, he used Charlie Parker's esoteric recording of Klektovitestein that featured the young Miles Davis, and he used it notably. Charlie Parker became our overture and finale in the center of many conversations. It was then that Laverne spilled his jazz guts. He and a friend, Les Adams, attended George Wean's Newport Jazz Festival in Newport, Rhode Island on July 3rd and 4th in 1960, having purchased tickets by mail. The festival, though highly successful, was marred by numerous riots when drunken fans without tickets were denied access to the 16,000-seat facility. It was, as Laverne said, horrifying to leave the stadium and encounter such a terrible scene with police helicopters hovering, while on the ground one saw National Guard troops and ubiquitous canine dogs. Ironically, no audience members were privy to the exterior conditions until leaving the stadium. On the return drive, before going to the respective homes, Laverne and Les stopped at Your Host restaurant on Main near the Anchor Bar. There they saw Joe Rico, the local jazz impresario, and were quick to relate the good and the bad of their jazz odyssey. Rico said George Wean and he were bringing a jazz festival to Offerman Stadium, a 12,000-seat citadel of Buffalo baseball on East Ferry and Michigan Avenue on Saturday, August 20, and Sunday, August 21. Performances for both evenings were to start at 8 p.m., preceded by twilight performances featuring some stellar local attractions. 15,500 people attended both performances, 9,000 on Saturday and 6,500 on Sunday, to make the Offerman Stadium Jazz Festival one of the largest two-concert attendances in the national jazz season. Laverne's eyes beamed when describing how East Ferry Street evolved in those 2 days and nights. It was magic, he said. A large contingent of Canadians loyal to Oscar Peterson came to see him perform. People were everywhere, all over the street. Area businesses like the Pig and Pit Barbecue, the Little Shack, both of which were on Purdy, they were booming, as were the markets of Altman and Green near Jefferson. And people bought bread, cold cuts, and soda, beer, and necessities. In the area bars and restaurants, the Blue Moon Cafe, J&F Grill, the East Ferry Restaurant near Walker, the Bonton, Les Simon Sportsman's Grill, Maxwell's German Restaurant at Main and Ferry. Everything was crowded on both nights. Even Gugino, the king of sixpenny nails, prospered in his hardware store in East Ferry Street. And from Laverne's insight, I gathered that a wave of happy, content humanity, local and from neighboring cities and states, was on East Ferry Street, celebrating the joy of jazz, whose notes bounced off the third baseline, the center field wall, and home plate. The crackling of Dizzy Gillespie and Louis Armstrong's trumpets danced triumphantly in the cool melodic night air, once reserved for the chilling, powerful sound of Luke Easter's baseball bat. Laverne said a Buffalo Police Department portable band shell served as a stage for the jazz artists. Its canines were present and were seen digging the sounds, but their services weren't needed, as the crowd, unlike Newport, consisted of sober listeners, jazz devotees dedicated to the art and its heroes. Laverne had an evening event poster. Saturday, Count Basie, Joe Williams, Dizzy Gillespie, Dave Brubeck, Dinah Washington, Art Blakey, and Horace Silver. Sunday, Louis Armstrong, Duke Ellington, Gene Krupa, Oscar Peterson, Chico Hamilton, Cannonball Adderley, Jackie Kane, and Roy Kral. At the time, William Jefferson, Laverne Clay's tenant in his Northampton Street home, worked at the Sheraton Hotel in Delaware near North, where the visiting jazz stars stayed. Laverne says Jeff did very well financially in those 2 days, running errands all over the city for many musicians. In 2005, after Branch Rickey calls the meeting wrapped, its American Culture Center, over coffee, Laverne and I reminisced about Offerman Stadium Jazz Festival of 45 years ago. Those 2 nights, he said, were great events. But the day after the festival, all one heard on local radio was Itsy Bitsy Teeny Weeny Yellow Polka Dot Bikini, or Let's Do the Twist. Laverne added my favorite artist, Horace Silver, was nowhere to be found. He added that change was coming then, and he said, I believe it's coming now. And there, my friends, is Laverne Clay's A Jazz Tale of Two Cities. Thank you.
Well, you don't need to say anything about Joey and his unbelievable ability to capture the character, the quality, and the color of all of this city. So thanks, Joe. But his material is based on information that we, as a result of our conversations, have gathered. We're going to introduce another story that also comes from information that we've gathered, and just as an introduction, it comes from contact between West Side and East Side. It deals with a mailman. I want to mention, as a transition, this contact between East and West. This week, or the last 2 weeks, are big weeks in the life of Ferry Street. 2 weeks ago, or 10 days ago, we had the Juneteenth Festival right down the street. Yesterday, Nick Sinatra announced the opening of what's going to be a very significant development on the west corner of Main and Ferry. This weekend on Ferry and Grant Street is the Water Festival, celebrated by our Burmese friends and their countrymen from that part of the world. So look at that. 1 week, Juneteenth, Water Festival, 2 miles away. Nick Sinatra, this. So with that as an introduction, I would like to bring up Mary Craig, who is going to read another Ferry Street story.
I grew up on East Ferry Street, listening to rhythm and blues. The Temptations, The Supremes, Big Joe Turner, Marvin Gaye, James Brown, Wilson Pickett, a young white boy named Elvis Presley, and Otis Redding, who in a Buffalo hotel room wrote, "I've been loving you too long," a personal favorite of mine. Much of what my friends and I heard came from local radio, George Hound Dog LaRinge, who often broadcast live from the Zanzibar on William Street, or from recordings at Doris Records, which is still there at East Ferry and Jefferson. The older folks, well, they listened to jazz. Miles Davis, Billie Holiday, Lester Young, Bird, Freddie Hubbard, Dizzy Gillespie, and the like. We kids didn't stray far from our musical venue. At least not until we met our new East Ferry mailman, Nick Lama. Red, the mailman that Nick replaced, was tall, in his 60s, unsmiling, quiet, and not a fan of the music emanating from area homes. Red walked into your yard or on your porch and, well, he just sort of avoided all eye contact. And his out-of-tune whistling clashed with what we heard. With Nick, a short man in his early 40s whose face could have adored a can of tomato paste, our lives changed. Musically, our lives changed. Our scope grew. Not that we deserted the aforementioned artist. No. It grew because Nick introduced us to the glory of something we'd never heard before, European opera, and the music of Giacomo Puccini. Nick Lama's first day of delivery was when we first saw him. It was hot. It was summer. My friends and I were on Main Street gazing at new cars on Old Man Miner's window. He passed us while singing a lovely melody, one that I had never heard before. And though the lyrics were foreign to me, its beauty was astounding. And I loved the wonderful simplicity of it all. In time, we saw more of Nick and we began walking with him on his route. Now my friends left it to me to ask about the songs he sang, the melodies to which we were becoming attached. He said, well, they're not songs, they're called arias. And I liked the way that sounds, so I said it a lot, arias. And they came from different operas composed by a man named Giacomo Puccini. The more we spoke to Nick about arias, the more we learned about Puccini, his quasi-tragic life, his melodies, his operas, La Boheme, Madama Butterfly, Tosca, and on and on. Oh, we soon learned that Nick was born in 1925 on Dante Place in a waterfront venue called The Hooks. That's where his Sicilian mother also was born. From Tommaso, his amateur singing father, who was born in Lucca, Italy, Puccini's birthplace, by the way, Nick acquired his love for the composer. From his mother, he learned about Nina Morgano, an amazing singing child protege who was born and lived in the Hooks, and who, in 1901, at the Pan-American Expedition, performed for President William McKinley shortly before the attempt on his life. Nina Morgan's incredible talent not only enthralled the Lamas, but the great Enrico Caruso, who sent the youngster to Paris, where he paid for her studies. Soon they performed together at the Metropolitan Opera in New York City. In addition to making us privy to a whole new musical form and being a font of information, we learned that we would be working for this entrepreneurial pouch-carrying agent of the U.S. Postal Service. You see, he recruited us to deliver mail with the promise of an ice-cold pop at the end of each day. Remember, I I was a little kid. That sounded wonderful. So we all agreed, and we delivered to the Beauty Nook, to Old Man Miner, to the Ballpark Restaurant, the home of Mr. Archie Clark, to Wall's Bakery, Buffalo's Speedometer, the Bonton, that was Les Simon's Jazz Club. On Maston, which is right here, we delivered to a cabinet maker, a printer, and an awning place. On Riley Street, we delivered to the Ingersolls, the Batsons, to Pierce, to Green, to Jacobson, and to many, many others. On and on it went. Finally, near Cadet Cleaners, we were paid. An ice-cold bottle of pop at the Ebony Soda Bar, courtesy of Lick Lama, who taught us all we know about the other side of music, who taught us about Giacomo Puccini, about Nina Morgana, about Enrique Caruso, and last but not least, he taught us about Nick Lama, who aided and abetted us in breaking federal law.
How do you find out a story like this? How do you find out a story about what happened at Offerman Stadium? How do you find out a story about the history of Dibbles, True Value on Ferry Street? Who knows that story? And who knows that the owners are here today? Tenzo and Jane, I can't say their last name. I never can. Sorry. I tried, though.
We only know how to spell it.
So how do we find, it was Willie Evans. Is Willie here? Willie Evans is one of the great residents of Cold Spring, born in Purdy Place, an absolute hero. And where's Willie? Willie Evans, an absolute hero in the whole history of African-American Buffalo. We were driving around with Willie, and he told us the story about Nick Lama. And we started to talk to other people, and all of a sudden the other guys are talking about Nick Lama. So we, through relationships, as the mayor said, through making the effort, going out and talking to people, you unearth their stories, and you can build relationships in the present. And that's what our work is really all about at the Friends of the Buffalo Story, and that's what our work at the Ferry Street Corridor Project is. I want to kind of wrap up quickly, or soon. I do want to mention what it is that we hope, our organization hopes to accomplish in the next 6 months to a year. We have a few initiatives which I'd like to mention to you. We need support. We want people to join us. This is absolutely a grassroots organization. We need manpower. We need funds. Then we want to go forward. We really, really believe in the value of integrating heritage in the public landscape. So one is we want to create a Buffalo Story Corps with the funding that would enable us to continue this work. Two, we are very deeply involved with and committed to the WASH Project. It's an extraordinary program that Barrett and Zaw, they're both here, have created on the west side of Ferry Street on Massachusetts. It is really the leading, or among the leading arts and community centers that are serving the new refugee population. This is an organization that was funded for 1 year, partially by AmeriCorps and partially by some people who are here today. The Rupp Foundation, one, is another. Chuck and Clady Massey, there are others. They have had not $1, and we're not begging, we're proud of funds. Private, other than those they raise. No, not a dollar of foundation support, not one, not a dollar of government, state, local, or national. And they are doing amazing work over there. So we want to see what we can do to strengthen that west side ferry. We want to work closely with Pappy Martin's family. And we're going to introduce for a brief minute, is it Eva? Oh. Alva Johnson. Pappy, the Pappy Martin's Jazz Festival. We have a wonderful photograph that Dawn gave me, his daughter. Shows Pappy playing in 1962 with Alvin Shepard and a pianist whose name I forgot, Les Davis. Pappy believed that the jazz festival was more than just a musical performance. He believed that it was vital to the education of the kids and the people in this community. And now this program, which is being administered by Pappy's daughter Dawn and their family friend Daryl People, we want to do, and we could use all your support with this. And please, if you would like to, Ms. Johnson.
I could not take this opportunity to say Ferry Street. When I first came to Buffalo in 1978, what struck me was I was taken down to the foot of Ferry and shown where the ferry existed that assisted so many of our ancestors that went before us as they were taken from Buffalo's Ferry Street over to Canada as the end of their journey on the Underground Railroad. And how appropriate that this street starts there, it goes from east to west, and it crosses a major street, which is Bailey Avenue, that goes north to south. And that's just like the hope of tomorrow. So this is just a wonderful project, and I just am thrilled to know that the new Pappy Martin Legacy Jazz Society is going to be launched right here. And on July the 2nd at Hallwalls, between 6 and 8 o'clock, we're going to have a very festive fundraiser towards helping with the Jazz Festival, the Maston Jazz Festival, which was Pappy's dream, along with Daryl Peoples and others who brought it back from the Million Man March years ago, 20 years ago to be exact. So we'd like to invite you all to come along and enjoy with us and be a part of supporting the 2 weekends. It's going to be July 19th and July 26th, when Buffalo will be alive with the Maston Jazz Festival. Will be held right at the Science Museum between, you know, the school and the park. So we're just going to ask you if you want to join us. That would be fabulous. Dawn Berry Martin continues the legacy of her father. As you know, he is a real part of the tapestry of this city, and I thank you.
We have 3 jazz musicians playing here today, all of whom have their roots deep in this neighborhood. Doug Gaston is here playing piano, Abdul Rahman is here on the drums, and Julie Booth is on the bass. We also have a young entrepreneur from the Cold Spring neighborhood. His name is Kobe Lewis, and anybody who's hungry, please go up to Mr. Lewis and buy some hot dogs, sausage, and whatnot. Here he is. The last initiative that we care deeply about is absolutely rooted in Ferry Street, and that is the effort by the led by the Hamlin Park Taxpayers Association and Stephanie's group there. They formed a group called the Restore Our Community Coalition that has already gone through an unbelievable effort, expensive effort, to create an agenda which would lead to the covering over of the Kensington Expressway, which they have their literature for you, and before we close and call on our final not speakers so much as participant, I thank you. I want to thank again Mayor Brown, who from the beginning recognized that this was viable when we applied for the NEA grant. It's a very, very competitive grant. There are only 67 awarded in the country that year. We worked not alone. We worked with the African American Cultural Center, Agnes Bain and Craig Sentry, and we worked with Sidney Gash at Young Audiences to put together a grant application. We would never have gotten that without the support of the mayor, and we appreciate the confidence he had in us. I want to thank again Kim Minkle from the NFTA, the Community Foundation, the work that Marissa Lehner and Barrett and others have done in the schools this year will continue this summer as a result of a grant from the Community Foundation. They will be working with taking their story mining, creation of public art into the summer, housed at Performing Arts, but it will be in the community. With that in mind, we've staked claim, thanks to Mr. Hine, I don't know if he's here, from Metro Storage. We've leased that old garage over there, and we've optimistically called it the Buffalo Story Garage. You know, you don't want to go in there yet, but someday you will. We've also leased, thanks to Mr. Hine's participation and support, the corner, which enabled us to use those walls. Please check out those walls. I want to recognize also the many, many people in this community, particularly the African American community, who have done so much work over so many years in working in their heritage. And you all are here. Brother Bell and Bill People left, and Ava Doyle, and oh my goodness, there's just so many. Is Sandra Bush here from the Meriwether Library. This is a community that embraces and loves its history, and has been doing that for many years. The final person I want to thank is the guy who is Scott Wood. Scott. There is nothing here, or on those walls, or on the corner, nothing that doesn't have his hands in it. So. And in the great spirit of open and of the new Buffalo, the Buffalo without borders and boundaries, a Buffalo that in 1 week celebrates Juneteenth and the other week celebrates the Water Festival, I want to introduce to you a new friend of mine. He's my first Buddhist monk that I ever met. His name is Chipamang Chowdhury. And he is from the Metta Buddhist Monastery in Buffalo, New York. And we're absolutely thrilled to have him close out our program today.
All right.
This is this piece of paper. I don't have a story. I wish I could have a story. It's actually a wonderful, amazing, such inspirational, educational stories. I hope I will live long enough so that I can have one story for Mark Goldman or Friends of Buffalo. 2 years ago, one of my Dharma friends or spiritual brother from New York, Brooklyn, New York, and he told me that he's moving to Buffalo. I kept silent for a few minutes. And then I asked him why. Well, he's senior than me, so I should be more polite, respectful. But anyway, he didn't answer. And I waited for another 8 hours. In the morning, I asked him again after breakfast, and why are you moving to Buffalo? I mean, New York, Brooklyn has everything there, at least for me. And he didn't answer. Then I waited another probably 12 hours in the evening. I asked him again, are you still considering that you're moving to Buffalo? Again, his answer was silent, so he didn't answer. And 6 months later, and he invited me to come to Buffalo. Okay, and I came 6 months later. I think probably around June 23rd or 24th. I don't remember, but it was in June. And then I found the answer. Such a beautiful city, and from that time now on, actually, I usually come at least 3 or 4 times a year to Buffalo. And Honorable Mayor said, you know, such a relentless organizer, Mark Goldman, actually, he is, I believe, and I agree with you, because we just met 2 days ago. And then since then, we become very good friends. Yeah. Either my energy pulls him towards me or his energy pulls me towards him. Either it's mutually actually. It was beautiful around. He came to our temple, which is Metta Parami Buddhist monastery. You can Google it. They are one of the newest Buddhist temple in Buffalo here. So and the monk is also very well known within the Burmese community. Also, you're welcome also to participate any cultural event that we are having. Also, I think next weekend also we have the Burmese New Year, a kind of also water festival. Also, please welcome to join. As you know, I was asked to do a closing prayer. I will do. It's a kind of we call it Metta Sutta in the Buddhist language. It's also a form of prayer. It's also a form of blessing. Also, it's also a form of also giving well-wishing to someone. Also, it's also a form of meditation. Also, it's one of the most widely practiced across the Buddhist countries, especially in the West, since Buddhism introduced to America probably 1970 something. This practice of metta, of loving kindness, something we call it. So it's one of the most practiced in the U.S. also. It's used also conflict resolution issues also, and also having relieving anxieties, worries, stress also. It's one of the it's caring for someone, wishing for someone is not easy to do. There were 6 stages. I won't go details today. So starting from personal one, and then friends, and then neutral person, even including enemies also, which sometimes we call it transmuting anger into love. This is what we do this practice. It's one of the beautiful practice. So what I will do is believe me, I won't take time, less than 3 minutes maybe. I will do with Pali first, and then I will do English translation. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Ahang awero homi, abhyapaja homi, aniga homi, sukhi attanang pariharomi. Sabbe satta, sabbe pana, sabbe buddha, sabbe puggala, sabbe attabhava, sabbe ittiyo, sabbe purisa, sabbe ariya, sabbe anariya. Avera hontu, abhyapaja hontu, sukhi hontu, aniga hontu, dukkha machantu, yatha labda sampattitu, mavi gacchatantu, purottimaya disaya, Pochimaya disaya, Uttaraya disaya, Dakkinaya disaya, Sabbe satta, sabbe buddha, sabbe puggala, sabbe attabhava, avera hontu, abhyapaja hontu, aniga hontu, sukhi attanang pariharantu. It's the English translation. May I be free from enmity and danger. May I be free from mental suffering. May I be free from physical suffering. May I take care of myself happily. May my parents, teachers, relatives, and friends be free from enmity and danger. Be free from mental suffering. Be free from physical suffering. May all beings, all living being things, all creatures, all individuals, all personalities, all beings with mind and body, all females, all males, all noble ones, all enlightened ones, non-enlightened ones, all living deities, all those in the 4 woeful planets, be free from mental suffering, be free from enemy and danger, be free from physical suffering. May all living beings free from suffering. Okay, the last one. Sabbe satta avera hontu, abhyapaja hontu, aniga hontu, sukhi attanang pariharantu. May all living beings be free from danger, anxiety and suffering, affliction, and live happily.
Thank you.